So this assignment asks us to talk about our story in the context of our ancestors to help us understand how we communicate, why we communicate, how we communicate. Um, my story begins and um, currently exists in Baltimore, Maryland. I was born and raised here in the 70s and am a kid of Saturday morning cartoons and The Cosby Show and all these things that made America great in the 80s and 90s. And soon after high school, I joined the Army. Um, Spent 10 years there where I learned how to be a leader, what leadership meant, or the beginnings of what I thought leadership meant, and most importantly, how to communicate with people effectively to get things done. So, as we look at the concepts of culture and communication, a military culture breeds a very directive type of communication, a very controlling type of communication. And based on the assessment that I took as part of Formative One, that helps to illuminate the how and why. So within my communication journey, there are three main elements that I've identified that really help to define how and why I communicate. The first element is that I am afraid of being not heard or not being listened to. And because of this, I often try to steer conversations using a mix of um, hiding my true feelings and trying to dominate the conversation. I want to be the most interesting or funny person in the conversation so that you pay attention to me. And it does get you noticed, but it really doesn't help when you want people to listen to what you're saying. And this kind of behavior makes people sometimes feel uncomfortable and can isolate them from you and from the dialogue. I think it comes from when I was a kid. I was a very energetic child, and I talked a lot, um, partially because I'm brilliant, but also because I just was a chatty child. I remember talking to adults around me, specifically my mom, um, and she would give me polite nods and mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Um, and I think that's well, a quick aside. That's kind of one of the ways I've gotten used to being such a great conversations with myself. Um, is the practice with my mom, who, bless her heart, she worked incredibly hard my entire life to take care of me. And oftentimes when we were together, either she was off or getting off, and probably didn't have the energy or the brain power left after working for the post office for 39 years um, to really entertain the whimsical musings of a of a 2 through 18-year-old. Um, and so she engaged, and she, you know how moms are. She picked up what she could when she could, and she always heard the things that mattered. Um, and that's something I also noticed about myself, is that when I really want to listen to something, I disengage. Um, and we'll touch on that in a bit, why that part is relevant. Anyway, I digress. But anyway, I remember, um, because I internalized what I thought was her lack of engagement. I started to feel like people were dismissing me, so I started to talk louder and faster, um, and that makes it hard to really share complete ideas. So in my excitement and or my fear, I started to speak quickly and loudly, sharing half-baked ideas, half thoughts, without explaining where they came from, where they were leading, or why they mattered to me and why they should matter to them. The second and third elements, they kind of run in tandem, and they're based on my career experience and my training. So, coming from a military background, as I mentioned earlier, I learned very early on, and it's an Army thing. I'm sure the Marines and the Air Force and the Navy say something similar, but to move like lightning and sound like thunder. Oh, and when I was first learning to lead formations, I had a drill sergeant that told me to just imagine myself as the drill sergeant that I looked up to the most, and to personify and to embody their movements, their characteristics, their inflection in mine, and that would help me to lead the formation because I would be channeling them. And I don't know about you, but I don't know many drill sergeants that speak softly to get things done, right? So I learned very early on to be loud and to be heard, especially being a little guy leading sometimes big formations. Um, because this approach was successful in that culture, it became one of my go-tos when my confidence or my safety felt diminished. There's also the concepts of when in charge, be in charge, and lead in the absence of leadership. These are also two things that I learned from my time in the military. Um, in the course of my career, I found myself frequently in charge. Over the course of my career, excuse me, I found myself frequently in a change management, solution development, project management role. Um, Specifically, mainly in the last 15 to 20 years, and that often has a lot of ambiguity in it. And in these areas, as my default, again, I resort to more control um, when I'm not sure what else to do. Um, Instead of the concepts that I've learned in recent years, like servant leadership, learning to listen, to empathize, and to absorb what's happening around you. I also learned three things, or began to realize three things about myself. One, leaders are given the ability to lead by those they lead. It's not taken. So control is an illusion. Command is given, not taken. Two, I'm not always in charge. I'm not always supposed to be in charge. So it's okay to follow. And three, I don't always have to be in charge and I don't always have to be right. Those are the three things that I've learned um, that will modify how I communicate going forward. But yeah, my second and third contributors um, are fear and my need to be in control because I need to be in charge. One additional contributor or influencer for my communication style or lack thereof communication skills is my overwhelming need to internalize things. Um, I I frequently have had a very low self image of myself, either due to my weight, um, my perceived appearance, my perceived attractiveness, um, my social standing, whatever it may have been. These things have contributed to my feeling insecure in myself. And because of this, I often internalize as not only a defense mechanism, but also as a means to try to rationalize the world that I don't understand. Why did this person stop communicating with me? Why does this person not like me? Well, it has to be something that I did. It has to be something that I said. And so that also colors how I communicate, how I receive feedback, and that definitely hinders my ability to have crucial conversations. My story becomes overwhelmingly a victim story, um, and that in itself, given my personality, is kind of a conflict because I'm not a victim. I don't position myself as a victim, and I don't believe that I'm a victim in any way. Not when I'm a control freak the way that I am. So to have a victim's narrative and a control freak's actions contradicts each other, and therefore my communication is a contradiction, right? I can't be I can't point fingers, control things, and be empathetic, but I am incredibly sensitive to other people. Or I try to be. I think that I am. Um, I I do listen even when it seems that I withdraw, which is one of the traits that I took from my skills assessment, my communication skills assessment with critical conversations. And so my high frequency of silence, withdrawal, control, masking all really frame themselves in my insecurities and my fears. So as I go forward from here, I guess the point, the lesson that I'm looking to take from Crucial Conversations, as I continue to read that book, is to find a way to disassociate me from my conflicts, understanding that it takes two people to really own a conflict, unless the problem originates and lives in me, which again we're moving away from that. But I have to be able to communicate what's wrong in order to help facilitate communication to get to right. So in things like creating a safe space, the safe space is not just for the person I'm talking with, but also for me to be able to not have to control or not have to withdraw from the conversation. I have to be able to feel safe within me so that I can make it safe for someone else. And so there's a lot of learning to do. There's a lot of um, growth I think that still needs to happen. But I can tell you that, you know, Patterson et al. In the book, they talk about how crucial conversations is changing lives, and I can tell you that the timing of the book in my life, along with some of the things that are going on in my personal life, couldn't be more divine because